Ivy Tech. This is the Ivy Tech's Auto Tech Tip of the Week. Today we're here to talk about batteries and jump starting and doing things safely. And we're going to run you through a few of the automotive operations of a vehicle and the dangers that are associated with jump starting incorrectly. So if you could come a little closer, my friends. If you look at the top of this battery in here, it shows several warnings across the top. It has everything from you're going to need eyewear for this to shield your eyes from any sulfuric acid. There's no flames, no smoking around it. And then you need to be aware that that sulfuric acid can not only burn the skin, which is why I have on gloves today, but it can also burn your eyeballs if it gets in your eyeballs, and it will eat holes through your clothes. Here we have flushing your eyes immediately with water if you do get sulfuric acid in your eyes. So if we look over at this battery, it's going to be slightly different. The battery in this vehicle, you'll notice, does not have caps on them. They do contain some of the same warnings. There are different batteries. There are different types of batteries out here. This happens to be a maintenance free, therefore it has no way to get to the top of the cells, whereas this one with the vents is actually a vented. The vented caps actually allow us in to get to the cells. Now Now you'll note that the top of these caps actually have a vent that comes out right here. This releases hydrogen gas when these are being charged, or they're in a state of discharge and someone has attempted to charge on them. So that makes this somewhat a mini hydrogen bomb. So it's important that you know where to put your jumper cable leads on without throwing sparks when it comes time to actually jump start a dead vehicle. The procedure that I'm going to show you can be used. This is going to be the vehicle that is doing the jumping. So this is our jumper vehicle, the live vehicle, and this is going to be the dead vehicle. So we have to be aware that not only can these leads throw sparks as they're attached, but we can also cause damage to the sensitive electronic components on board if we do it incorrectly, and we cause voltage swings in the system. So I'm going to start by taking the red lead, and the vehicle should never be touching each other when you do this. So I'm going to start by taking the red lead, and I'm going to find the positive side of the battery on our jumper vehicle, which happens to be this side. I'm going to attach the lead here, and then I'm going to move to the dead vehicle, and I'm going to find the positive side of the battery on this battery, and I'm going to attach the lead here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find a safe place to clamp this away from the red lead. I'm going to find something that I can clamp this on, whether it be a hose or like this plastic strap, something that does not conduct electricity, just to hold it in place for a second so it doesn't get bumped up towards the battery and this other clamp right here. I'm going to go to my jumper vehicle, and I'm going to install this on top of the battery at the terminal. Then I come back to my the vehicle being jumped, and in the event that the battery could be in a sulfated state, if it was overcharging and pumping hydrogen gas out of these vents, we don't want to put this negative cable on the actual top of the battery. Instead, we're going to find a good engine ground to clamp it to, so that we don't throw sparks anywhere near this battery. We're going to go back to our jumper vehicle, and we're going to start it up, and we're going to raise the engine RPM up to approximately 1500 RPM. That allows the vehicle will have a higher voltage, and the alternator will be up and available to add amperage back into the dead battery. So we're actually using the charging system off of the jumper vehicle to slightly charge the battery back up. This is recommended to be done for about 3 to 5 minutes at 1500 RPM. So I'm going to start this up and show you what that sounds like. after 3 to 5 minutes, at 1500 RPM, you're going to shut off the vehicle that you are doing the jumping with. And you are going to use the battery only to provide any extra power that this dead battery needs to start. So then you enter the vehicle that has been jumped. And attempt to start it. Once the vehicle is started, you're going to want to let it run for a couple minutes to help charge the battery back the rest of the way. You may not have received a full charge, but enough sufficient to start the vehicle. So now we have to take the clamps back off. We're going to start with the red cable off of the one that's being jumped. We're going to take our positive lead back off of the jumper vehicle, and then we're going to take our positive lead also off of the jumper vehicle. This makes it safe. This makes it safe to now remove the negative cables where you won't throw any sparks whatsoever. Always when you're underneath the hood, be aware of any turning components. You want to watch where your fan belts and your fan ride, because you don't want the cables getting anywhere near this where they can wrap up and be slung around inside of the engine compartment. So you would let this vehicle run for about 3 to 5 minutes itself and then try to restart it. If it does not restart after 3 to 5 minutes, its charging system may have an issue, and you may want to have the charging system checked. Can a vehicle have a bad battery and yet drive to the auto parts store to have it replaced? Yes, it can. But if your alternator is going bad and you just added amperage back into the battery, and you may not make it to the actual parts store if you didn't get a sufficient charge. So you should go inside the vehicle at this time and look on the instrument panel and look for any signs that the voltage may not be where it is, where it's supposed to be. If there's any warning lights on, or you have a battery light on the dash, that may be indicating that you have a faulty charging system, and that's why the battery was dead and you needed to jump start it. But this is the proper technique to keep you from getting hurt by sulfated battery gases or gases that are outside of either one of the batteries. This is the best practice in order to allow for safe jump starting. Now we're also going to talk a little bit about the different types of batteries and show you some tools that are used. Oftentimes when a car doesn't start, it's not due to the actual battery. Many times it's just the connections at the battery itself. The way that we check for this is we turn on the headlights, and when we try to start the vehicle, if the headlights go completely out, that is usually an indication that you have a battery terminal problem where it meets the battery itself. The terminals are having an issue with either corrosion or loose connection. Oftentimes you'll see sparks or a little bit of smoke or something like that will arise from the bad connection. So if you see that when somebody tries to crank it over, that's a sure sign that you're having a bad connection at that point. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this vehicle off, and then we're going to go take a peek at some of the battery tools that are associated, and we're going to talk some more about things to look for underneath the hood when it comes to your battery. All right, a vehicle's battery state of health now is dependent upon a lot upon maintenance and how the vehicle is maintained. If it's driven daily, it's going to have a charge put back into it every day. There usually will not be a problem with the battery unless it has acid across the top, and we will show you an example of this. If there is what we call an ignition off draw, or it has a battery drain in the system, and the battery goes dead after 2 to 3 days, you will have to take it to a repair facility and have it checked for an ignition off draw. There may be a component somewhere on the vehicle that's actually borrowing amperage out of that battery and taking its reserve charge out and using it to run something unbeknownst to you. As far as battery maintenance is concerned, we always want to be concerned with the actual battery connection itself. Where the terminal meets the post, these can actually build corrosion underneath them. They need to be tight and they need to be clean. Like I said, if your headlights go out while you're cranking, oftentimes it's just a connection between the post and the actual terminal. If the headlights dim, it may mean that the battery needs a charge. If your headlights do not flinch at all and you hear no starter action, there is a possibility it could be in an anti-theft mode, or something such as a transmission range sensor, or a solenoid's gone bad. There's several different things, a pop fuse that can cause that. So be aware that, you know, if you run that simple test, the headlight, what we call the headlight test during cranking, it helps to steer you in a correct way to find the problem. So if you come with me. Over here, we have a couple different varieties of what we call source voltage. This is known as a jump pack. We use this to boost dead batteries out on the lot. Well, if we have a car that has a dead battery, we will grab the jump pack, and this provides source voltage just like you had a jumper vehicle. And you turn it on at the front here, and it should be above 12.8 for the charge, the 12.8 volts on this display, and then you hook it up to your vehicle in much in the same way. It's recommended that you put this on the red positive post and the negative lead someplace on the engine block, a good clean spot on the engine block that's metal. Remember, when you're underneath the hood and you're putting that negative lead on, you need to be aware that many of the newer modern vehicles have plastic components all over it. The upper intake may be plastic, the valve covers may be plastic, so you will have to look for something that looks aluminum. It needs to be a grayish color, a shiny grayish color, or a silverish color, I should say. Here's an example, another example of a maintenance-free battery. And as you can see, this one looks pretty good. There's no layer of acid. This is an example of a battery that may be draining itself out because there is acid all the way across the top of the battery here. They sell at your local auto parts store, they have battery cleaner in a can, an aerosol can. When you go to spray it, if you're going to clean this battery off, it is recommended that you put it on a rag and or a paper towel and use that to wipe down the top of the battery. You do not want to get that acid neutralizer down in these vent caps because it can kill the cell voltage. It can actually neutralize the battery acid that's in here. The sulfuric acid that's suspended inside the fluid, the sulfur that's suspended inside the fluid, if you discharge the battery all the way to zero, get near 0 volts in cold weather, it will actually hang itself back to the lead plates that are in this battery. And what you will end up with is pure H2O. You will have nothing but water out in between in the battery case itself. These, when you get a frozen battery, if it is frozen, you do not want to charge that battery or try to jump that. You do not want to try to charge that battery up because they can actually explode. It's a bad deal. So as far as cleaning the top of this battery, like I said, there's a neutralizer that comes in a can that can be used. It has a pink indicator. It will come out of the can yellow and will turn pink as it touches the acid, so that kind of confirms it. The leak points on this battery can be the case itself can have a problem and be leaking acid externally. If it does that, it may have gotten into the what we call the battery tray that this is bolted down to, and it will require cleaning. It will peel paint off of vehicles. So, you know, you want to get that acid off there immediately. These posts can also go bad and leak up through here. If you look at this post right around this area, you can see that there's actual corrosion starting at the base. This would be a typical tool that we use to clean the battery post up. You should have something like that where it's nice, bright, and shiny when you're done. Then on the other end of this has a battery brush that goes into your terminal, and you would want to do the same thing until you see a nice, bright, shiny connection, and then you would reinstall it to the vehicle. Well, that one's pretty ugly. So as you can see, that had a lot of oxidation on it, and these brushes are quite aggressive, and they're capable of taking that back off of there and giving you a serviceable circuit. You would also clean the top of this battery, and then you would check the voltage, and if it's not up to the specific voltage of 12.6, you would put a charger on it. Depending on where the battery is in its state of charge, there are reference charts that are online. You can go to Google And for a lead acid battery, this is considered a regular lead acid battery. There will be a chart that tells you how long, at how many amps you should install a battery charger to this. If you are dealing with what's called, if you look at the top of your battery and you find that it says AGM on the top of it, you are dealing with an absorbent glass mat battery. That will require a different battery charger that limits the amount of voltage so that it does not do any damage to the battery itself. So bear these things in mind, that the newer batteries that are out there that are being used, although they last a lot longer, they are susceptible to damage if you hook an older battery charger up. Now, if you're doing what's called float charging, if the vehicle is not being driven every day and you want to prevent the battery from discharging on its own, you need to put what's called a float charger on it, which is a small amount of amperage that's added back into the battery for it to hold its charge. They're generally self-regulating, and they're usually as low as 1.5 amps. This will maintain your vehicle so that if you have it stored away in a different location and you're not driving it every day, when you get ready to get in it and drive away, it'll be ready for you, and it will not require a jump. The other thing is, if you do, in the event that you do have an alternator failure, you will want to charge that battery up. It's very hard on alternators if the battery has been run down. It's very hard on a brand new alternator if you basically start the vehicle off of a jump start or a jump pack, and then you immediately just let it run to charge the battery. It can do damage to that new alternator, or shorten the life of that new alternator. It really makes the heat work on the inside of them. So in the event that you do have an alternator that has to be replaced, make sure that you put a battery charger on the battery and bring it up to its appropriate voltage, and that would be 12.6 for a lead cell and 12.8 for an AGM at about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And you'll notice that I am wearing my safety glasses today. It's always recommended that if you're working around the batteries, that you're going to need on safety glasses and gloves so that the sulfuric acid doesn't get to your skin or your eyes. And that, my friends, is our Ivy Tech tip of the week.